Imagine a soldier the size of an insect. The ultimate secret weapon.
Marvel's new movie of the month is Ant-Man. Ant-Man is a movie loosely based off of a comic book of the same name, in which we learn that Marvel is okay with bland, one-note villains. We also learn that if Marvel has a choice between showing and not showing spousal abuse, it will choose not showing it every time. The movie has an ending, and in typical Marvel fashion, it has an end of the credits scene that only comic book nerds will actually get, and the rest of us will pretend to get so we seem smart.
Break into a place and steal some stuff.
Makes sense.
Some of you may have noticed the new getup back here. I have moved. It's probably one of the reasons why I haven't done a review in so long. Actually, it's just because I've been lazy and I've been working too much. However, I got a review for you today, and it's on Ant-Man. A lot of people that I know pretend to know all about movies and stuff whenever they come out. So basically, before this movie came out, I would imagine, and I'm sure you've seen and heard stuff like this, basically I would imagine half the people I know had no idea who Ant-Man is or what his deal was. I didn't, I'm not going to lie to you. But once it's announced, it seems like everybody's an expert on it. I mean, I can, Google and Wikipedia stuff myself. But it's just funny how things work that way. But anyway, on to the review. So Ant-Man was directed by Peyton Reed, the esteemed director of Bring It On, The Breakup, and Down with Love. So perfect for a Marvel superhero movie. So this, Marvel has done stuff like this before, kind of. They, Guardians of the Galaxy was directed by James Gunn, who, he did Super, which I guess is a superhero movie, but totally a weird fit. But Marvel likes to kind of gamble on their directors, which is fun. I like that. However, you can't really talk about this movie without talking of the controversy of the writing team. Edgar Wright, who is the guy behind all the Shaun of the Deads and all the Simon Pegg and all those movies, and Scott Pilgrim, pretty brilliant writer, pretty funny. It's just everything that he's basically done, I have liked in some sort of critical way. He was slated to write, and he left about a year before the movie was released. Basically, the gist of what happened was, or what I get out of it, is he wanted to take the movie in a certain direction, and Marvel said, nope, this is what we want. We need to tie into the Avengers. We need to do all this other stuff. And Edgar Wright kind of opposed them on that. He wanted to create a nice self-contained story, and they kind of went back and forth on it. So out he went. Most of his material was used, I hear, but, we can only speculate on that. Paul Rudd ended up writing a little bit of it. Joe Cornish wrote some of it, and Adam McKay wrote. So, the writing of it, and you can kind of tell because the movie is a little schizophrenic at times. You can't, tonally it shifts a lot. Sometimes you can't tell if it's trying to be a comedy or if it's trying to be like a heartwarming story. So let's get kind of into like the plot and everything. And there's probably going to be a tad bit of spoilers. I'll try not to spoil too much of it, but just by talking of the nature of the film, some stuff will happen. So most people get by now the story of Ant-Man. Hank Pym, he sort of created this character. Now he's getting a little old and he's had, involvements with other things, and he can't do this. His daughter wants to be the Ant-Man, Ant-Woman, whatever it is, but because of personal reasons, Hank doesn't let her be one, even though apparently she's this brilliant martial artist. And this is typical Marvel stuff where the one character is not only brilliant with this, but brilliant with that and good with that. And, it's kind of typical. I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit at the Hope character just because she can do anything, she wants, and she's, great at everything. So, so you kind of, at the beginning of the movie is kind of this weird, Paul Rudd gets out of prison, Baskin-Robbins scene, and like, you kind of wondering like, where's this all going? And then you sort of start to realize that he's like a brilliant thief, which it kind of shows him doing some like parkour type moves and stuff like that. And then it kind of sunk in my brain, oh, okay, I get it. They want to use a thief because he's, good at, evading and good on his, quick thinker, that kind of thing. So I kind of get where they were going with it. I don't think anybody would ever use Paul Rudd. But anyway, speaking of Paul Rudd, he did an excellent job. Again, this was kind of like a Chris Pratt kind of a deal where it was something I didn't really think, I didn't really see Paul Rudd being very good as a superhero action star, but he did great. He buffed up for the role, which I think I want to go on the Marvel diet, because they take all these like flubbies, looking dudes and like buff them up and get these nice ripped bodies. I want to do the Marvel diet. But anyway, so Paul Rudd did a really good job. I kind of got into his character a little bit. He's not very funny, which was good. I didn't want like a comedy role out of him, and I didn't get much. There was a little kind of subtle hints to comedy, but he wasn't a comedian. It wasn't like an overwhelmingly quippy and funny character, which was good because they had other characters in the movie, and I'll speak on that were. So if he would have been this funny comedian, it kind of would have had maybe too many, kind of like a Godzilla movie, the Godzilla movie where everybody's the sidekick, the funny sidekick. I didn't want that, so that was good. They kind of toned down his character a little bit, but so you had this kind of schizophrenic movie at the beginning where he's trying to get back in touch with his daughter and he's trying to make it, go straight and all this stuff, and then he realizes that's not going to happen, and he goes back into his life of stealing. And then they introduce Michael Pena, whatever his name is, and one of the bright moments of the movie, which it just every time it was on the screen, it was hilarious. Michael Pena's storytelling. So when he tells a story, he tells it like he's just like he's talking and like talking in his character. So this person did that. Then it was like, what? And every time he does stuff like that, it cuts to the characters that he's talking about, and they're saying exactly what he's saying. It was just a funny kind of a breakup of storytelling, and it was obviously an exposition dump, but they did it really, really well, and it was really funny, and it really has a lot to do with adding a little bit of depth to that minor character. And he's just hilarious. I mean, they do this, I think, about 3 times, and every time it came on the screen, it was funny, it was fresh. This is what Marvel's good at. So this is why Marvel has us by the balls, because they do things like this that are funny or subversive enough from the trope or from the typical stereotype that we're okay with it. So anyway, so Paul Rudd learns of this job that but that's pretty easy to do. And basically what it was is Hank Pym set this thing up for him to steal, just to kind of test him. And then this is whenever we learn of Ant-Man and all this other stuff. So I'm not going to go into like full plot details or anything like that, but I just wanted to kind of convey that at the beginning of the movie, you get a weird tone of like him struggling to try to be a father, and there's a lot of time dedicated to this. And then it totally cuts from that. Oh, and then it cuts to like the villain, who I'll get into, trust me. The villain kind of talking about this new technology he has, and then so it's just weird kind of mix of a movie, and I it was kind of grating at first. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I didn't know what the tone was, and I couldn't establish where this movie wanted to go until Act 2, whenever they really establish and they set in kind of in stone what it is that they're planning. So first Marvel movies, usually these things are trilogies and stuff like that, but the first Marvel movie is always there to establish the character, set kind of a backstory, and get you used to and familiarize with the characters. Usually, almost every single time, it ends in a big dumb fight because they don't know how to end these movies. So they just make a fight, just fight each other. And it kind of happens in this movie, but it's more of this heist kind of, 90s, 80s heist film at the end, which I thought was a smart thing to do with it. And that's where I think Edgar Wright, that's where I imagine this is his writing. He wanted to create probably this self-contained heist movie starring Ant-Man and all of his things. And Marvel wanted to kind of tie it more into the Avengers, which in the middle of the movie, they need this piece of technology, which is the MacGuffin, like it always is. And this piece of technology is obviously, a Stark thing. So they have to go to the Avengers, which I thought this was completely shoehorned in. It didn't fit the tone of the movie. It didn't fit anything with the movie. They just realized they need this piece of tech, and the only place to get it is the Avengers headquarters, which I guess the only actor they could get for this movie was... forget the guy who plays Falcon, but Falcon was the only Avenger that was there, and they had this kind of like pseudo fight scene, which was cool, but it felt really shoehorned in. And you can tell that was something that was added. And I may be wrong about this. I have no idea. I didn't research this, at all. It could have been something Edgar Wright wrote, but I'm going to go ahead and doubt that, seeing as how it's completely different than everything having to do with the rest of the film. So, and they even... Hank Pym even says that was reckless and all this other stuff, and it's almost like breaking the fourth wall a little bit, letting you know that this was kind of stupid, you know what I mean? And it really was. So, and speaking of breaking the fourth wall, they do that quite a bit throughout the movie, where they say, why don't you just call the Avengers? And they say, oh, they're too busy saving a city from toppling out of the sky, or whatever it is that they say. So, kind of clever. I think Marvel's starting to realize that people are catching on, that why don't they just send in the Avengers to do everything? And, so they kind of address that a little bit. But so back to kind of like the writing and everything is you can tell the movie's a little schizophrenic in the fact that you can tell what is a Edgar Wright scene and what is a scene that's not from him. So, and it's kind of these hard transitions, and it kind of took me out of the film a little bit, but not too much. The film is still clever. The film is still, it's still a good, nice... It's probably one of the better origin movies of all these characters that I can recall. I'm not going to say the best, but it was a very good kind of self-contained story, and I wish they didn't have to shoehorn in everything else having to do with the Avengers and all this other stuff. So... then they introduce this Yellow Jacket character, and they do nothing with it for 45 minutes to an hour. In fact, it was so long I kind of forgot about the Yellow Jacket entirely. And then, they sort of enter in the Yellow Jacket at the end, and it's sort of like a fight scene. So, really the only bad thing I have to say about this movie is the villain, which that was the only bad thing really I had to say about Guardians of the Galaxy. These villains, Marvel has got to do something with these villains. This villain was even worse than Ronan the Accuser, or Ronan the Boring, or whatever it is that you want to call him. This guy was just, I want money, power. It was just completely one note, one dimensional. I didn't care. I can't even remember what the guy's name was. I have it written down here. Darren Cross. I mean, it says that they set it up like he's Hank Pym's kind of protege or something like that. But to me, it was just... they've got to do something. They have such a good villain with Loki. It's like they tried really hard with Loki, and I don't know if they just struck gold with Tom Hiddleston, but we sort of were like, hey, this is with Thor and everything, and Loki, like, hey, they've got everything. They've got every single aspect of this Marvel movie making cornered. But now they're starting to slip way, way, way down with these villains. And really, if they could bring these villains into the forefront and give them personalities and give them everything that they need to succeed, I think really there's no way that DC could catch up. And not that I really even care about the race or whatever it is like that, but Marvel has their style and their brand of movie making, and they have it really dialed in. But I'm not going to say it's like better than Guardians. I enjoyed Guardians more. It was a little bit more wacky, and I love James Gunn, and you can sort of tell that that's a James Gunn movie. But really, I enjoyed Ant-Man a lot. It's, like I said, one of the better origin movies of all these Marvel characters, and it'll be interesting to see what they do in the future. Again, I know nothing about Ant-Man. I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about Ant-Man. I don't know anything about the Wasp. I know nothing about it. So I came into this movie just kind of critiquing it as a movie. I have no idea whether or not it's faithful or not. I don't really care. And that's, a major thing with me in these Marvel movies is I don't care what they do with it. I don't care if they completely subvert and go with something completely different than what's in the comic books. It's fine with me as long as it's a good movie. So like I said, you can sort of tell when scenes are shoehorned in for Marvel Cinematic Universe tie-ins, and I wish they wouldn't do that. I mean, we get it. Some of these characters need to be tied in and everything, and they have a world to build, and they've done it well, but really, I mean, it would just kind of took away from the movie for me, and I just thought it was unnecessary. But Paul Rudd did a really good job. I was really impressed with his performance. Evangeline Lilly's Hope, she was kind of one note, but her acting was fine. Michael Douglas did a fantastic job. He's looking really old, but it's fine. But it's Michael Douglas. I mean, this guy, he's a wonderful actor. You give him anything to do, and he's going to turn it into something good. And then obviously the villain, I don't think that was the actor's fault. It was just a poor written role. I mean, and I do sort of cut them a little bit of slack on the first movie villain, just because they have a lot to establish and they have to devote a lot of time to building this world up. So they can't devote a whole lot of time to the villain. But maybe don't devote so much time to the horrible child actor that was his daughter. I mean, she was terrible. I mean, it was awful. Her acting was terrible. I mean, all these movies that have child actors in them, and these superhero movies, you can just tell that the child actors suck. So maybe devote less time to her and that plot, and then maybe build your villain a little bit more. But again, like, I'm not going to tell Marvel how to make a movie. So go see it. It's definitely worth your money, worth your time. It was fun. It was a fun action movie, and deserves your money. But Marvel, this is the lowest grossing Marvel movie, I think, of recent times or something like that. So, I mean, it still made a shitload of money, but maybe the Marvel island is starting to crack a little bit. Maybe they're going to have to change their game up just a tad. Maybe this is the start of the end. I doubt it. I think Marvel is going to keep doing what they're doing, and then as long as they keep having people go see the movies, they'll be fine. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you like the new digs. Maybe I'll get a new desk soon, but I'm kind of digging the retro look. But stay tuned for more reviews, and I think I'm going to see Pixels next. So we'll see. But anyway, see you later, guys.